Hello, and welcome back to Sawdog Woodworking. Today, I'm going to finally get to this router table that I have been teasing in I don't know how many videos. It is made out of found materials, and I just mean things that I still had. This goes back to the video series of putting the shop itself together. So this is actually made from an old workbench that my daughter had grown out of. There's plywood taken from that. There's some 2x4s taken from that. The handles themselves are made from wood that I had here. The switch is taken off of an old router table that I had been using, just this cheap rickety thing, but the switch itself was really good. The top and the router fence itself, that's going to be a two-part video, so a second part to this video. This took a long time to build, and so did this. So instead of making it just one long video, I'm going to put it out as a two-parter. I'm going to get them as back-to-back as I can, though, so you don't have to wait. But I'll show you how I built these drawers with no hardware to purchase. It's just a little extra plywood, and I'll show you that. I'll talk about the router at some point as well. I did put a video together a while back when I bought this, a whole unboxing thing. I think it's a rough, pretty bad video. I'll see about putting it out. But this is a Triton router that I've really been enjoying, and I'll talk about that and its usage, I think, when I do the router fence. So this also has some casters on the bottom that I had here. I'm not actually sure what they even came off of. So 2 fixed wheels, and then I did some leveling adjusters on the other side that I'll talk about at the end of the video on how and why I built those. I thought about doing 4 wheels, 2 fixed and then 2 swivel that could lock on that side, but I'll go over that in the video as well. But my floor is not level, so that just wouldn't have worked out. The whole thing would have rocked. So I made 2 levelers and 2 fixed wheels just to slide it around and get it out of the corner when I use it. There's a handle on there as well. But I'll talk about that later on in the video. Right now, instead of blathering on about it, let's get started. Come on.
It's amazing to look back on this video and just see how far the shop has come. It was such a mess. So this is the workbench that I had built my daughter years back. It's actually made from an old workbench top from my classroom. And she used it a lot for little painting projects and stuff, just to kind of be a part of my shop. But she doesn't use it any longer. She's in her teens now, so she's just going to use pretty much my shop if she needs anything. And she said I could poach the materials, so away I went. Now this is a featherboard. What this is going to do is it's going to hold that 2x4 up against the fence and keep it from wobbling around. And it also keeps my fingers away from the blade. You can't really see it there, but I've put what's called a dado stack. So what that does is it widens the amount of cut that I'm going to make in that 2x4. And in the end, I'm going to put 1/2-inch MDF panels in there. Now I used 1/2-inch MDF. If you have plywood or even want to use some hardwoods in there, you can do that as well. If I were making cabinet doors, these shorter pieces would be known as the rails. They create the width. They'll go across the top and bottom of the panel. And these longer pieces would be known as the stiles. They're going to create the length or the tallness of it. I could have done dados on the ends of these as well, but I figured it's a shop cabinet and it may have been limitations as to how much material I had. I decided to do pocket screws on these as well. So I skipped the pocket screw step on this, but I drilled all these with pocket screw holes, and now I'm gluing and going through putting pocket screws in here. I am gluing the MDF panel in place. If this were hardwood expands and contracts, so I wouldn't do that. I'd let it float in the dado. But MDF is solid or more stable, as is plywood, so I usually glue it in. It just creates a lot more rigidity to whatever it is I'm building. And where I didn't do dados on these pieces going in, it gives it a little more strength as well. The reason I did a middle piece here, it's for decoration. It adds a little strength, but more than anything, I didn't have a lot of MDF, so this allowed me to use the small pieces that I had and then the 2x4 in the middle gave me a little more dimension to work with. I think I was just a few inches off for the small piece of MDF that I had. Again, I'm using whatever scraps I had lying around. You can go out and buy a full sheet and build this however you want. I was doing this on $0. So clamps, as usual, come in real handy. Pocket screws are known to move or help, will pull the wood out of place, so clamping them is usually recommended, if not highly recommended, at least by me. And that's it. The panel is done. I did that twice. As you can see, they're standing up right now. These are going to be some cross pieces, also pocket holes. I believe this could be the top, because there will be a top that goes over all this and covers those pocket screws and makes it look a lot nicer. So I'm going to clamp it in place, make sure everything is lined up, and it's already been glued. I'm just going to screw that in place and move on to all four sides. I love pocket screws. I know there's debate on whether these are good or not. I haven't had any issues with them. I think they work great. It takes a little extra time to drill the holes, but any sort of joinery will take a little bit of time. This is probably one of the faster ones. If I were doing some fine furniture, I would shy away from pocket screws and do more fine joinery, dovetails or dados, or not dados, tongue and groove, things of that nature. So I go around all four sides. There's going to be two covering the bottom, and then there'll be two more covering the top. So this is actually the bottom, I can tell, because the legs on the right hand side are still there. You can see I don't have legs come down on the left hand side. That's going to accept the casters that I'm going to put on there. So those legs came down the same distance as what I would need to cover the casters. So once it's in place, it'll be as level as it can. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, my floor is not level, so the casters being fixed in place, they don't allow to take the wobble out. So at the end of the video, just as a reminder, I do show how I make floor levelers for these legs. You can just put 4 legs on this. If it's going to be a stationary piece of equipment in your shop, then there's no reason why you'd even need to put the casters on there. Mine sits in a corner, and I'm going to pull it out when I need to. It just saves space in my smaller shop. If you are going to put casters on here, I highly recommend getting casters that are rated for a good amount of weight. This table itself ended up weighing a lot more than I expected it to. The 2x4s, the pine and everything doesn't weigh a lot, but once the drawers went in, the weight of the tools themselves, there are 2 full-size routers and a small trim router, plus all the bits to go with it, and those drawers aren't even full yet, and this thing weighs a lot to lift up, even when I put the handle on here and wheel it around. So get something that's going to be able to handle the girth of your table. And from here, oh yeah. So sometimes when you're cutting wood, it will pinch, and my blade is a little dull on this, as you can see, so that smoke was me burning through the wood. I flipped it around. So what I was doing is I was making what was called a rabbet. So there's just an opening groove on the end of this piece of 2x4 that I cut. What that is going to do is I have a piece of OSB that's oriented strand board. Most of the time this is used for subfloors in new homes and whatnot. I'm going to use it for a shelf. It came off the old workbench. So this rabbet that I cut into this 2x4 is going to go along the front of that shelf. And it's going to do 2 things. It's going to neaten it up so you can't see the crappy edge on that OSB, but it's also going to make it so that that OSB has some nice support now, because over time it would probably start to sag and cup in the middle. Putting this rabbet and a piece of more solid wood on the front is going to hold that nice and sturdy. Plus, I'm going to put a frame around the whole thing, and that will give me a way to screw this into the router table itself. So that's the frame I'm talking about there. Again, all just gluing and screwing, or in this case, I'm using my brad nailer. Now, you don't need to go too nuts on the nails here. They're really just there to hold the wood in place while the glue dries, and that is going to be more than sturdy enough to to hold it together once it is dry. This is all downward force on there, so it's not like it's wrenching and pulling. But that frame that I built all around the underside of that is going to give the shelf support, and it now gives me something to screw it into the side of the cabinet with, as you'll see me do right here. And these are just regular screws. Most likely, I think I skipped the step where I pre-drilled everything, but I did, especially when I'm working with a soft wood like pine, want to make sure I've pre-drilled everything or it will split. So I get all that in place. These are going to be some cross pieces that are going to support spacers that will eventually hold all the shelving. So I want to get these in. Same as always, it's all pocket screws and glue. Pretty sure I glued these. They may just be screwed in. They're not huge amounts of support, so I may have spared the glue on this one and just screwed them in. Now these plywood dividers, or more OSB, will be creating 3 cavities. The middle cavity will be where the router will go. And then the cavities on the left and the right hand side are going to be for 3 drawers. Now this will be what I attach the drawer slides to. Again, I'm not going to actually be buying drawer slides. There's no hardware with these. It's a new, kind of a different way. I'd never tried it before. I really have liked it, and that comes up in just a bit on how to make those drawers. So again, a little bit of glue and some brad nails. There's not a ton of support that these need, and they're going to also be supported by the back panel and the face frame once all that is done. So the glue, the nails, and everything else is going to hold these and give them more than enough strength. So I just rub that glue in, get the other piece in the same way, and off it goes. You'll see I did notch them a little bit to get around the 2x4s because I do want them to sit flush with the front and flush with the back. I've come in 3/4 of an inch on the front. That is going to accept a 3/4 inch face frame, and that'll neaten that front up like we did on the drawer, well, not the drawer, but the shelf that we had built earlier with the dado. So I want to make sure everything is nice and square. Now's the time to do it before the glue dries, and on to the next. And as I bop my head to what can only be assumed a rockin' tune, I'm going to glue up the front of that OSB, hit the top and the bottom of that face frame, and get it snugly fit right in there. This is going to give that OSB, like I said, a little bit more strength, but it really neatens it up and hides the rough edge of the OSB and paints up nicely. Everything's nice and square. I'm going to get my nail gun out, hit it with a few brads or a few finished nails, I think is what I'm using. And that just makes sure that it doesn't move while it's drying. Again, the glue is going to most likely be enough for this, but I like a little extra. And once that is done, I'm going to now cut the back. You can see all those panels in place. These are some spacers, or some nailers they actually end up being, and this is going to give the back panel something to nail into and keep it from flopping all around. And these are just, I don't think I put any glue on these. Probably I did. I'm a glue nut. So I threw some glue on these, let's assume, and hit them with a few nails. And like I said, this is just going to give the back panel something to nail into. Now the back panel I made out of just a small piece of melamine. I think this is maybe 3/4, or not 3/4, 1/4. It comes out to about 3/16 of an inch. It's not very thick. You see this on a lot of IKEA furniture and the backs of things like that. It's pretty cheap. Again, I didn't need anything structural back there. What I'm really looking for is just cover that back up so that all my drawers don't fill with sawdust when I'm using my my router. So the track saw, this is actually, I think, one of the first times I had a chance to use this track saw. Something that I learned for you track saw users or people that want to get a track saw, melamine's slippery. So be careful how you're doing it, because even the track saw's nice grippy bottom slid around a little bit on me. And there's my piece. See how it fits? I'll give it a quick test fit. I put the smooth side on the inside and then the rough side on the outside. So that way, if any sawdust does hit it, it's going to clean off easier on the side that I'm using, not the side that's in the back. And I am using 1/2-inch staples on this is what I am showing myself here. So again, this doesn't have to have a lot, but one thing that this will do, I said it's not going to add any support, but it actually does add some support. This piece really wasn't going anywhere, but throwing in something like this will keep the whole thing from rocking around and coming out of square. And from there, I wanted to start cutting kind of some rough shapes for all the drawer bottoms and sides. So I had this, I did buy this. This was not a piece of plywood that I had lying around. Some investment was made in this table. But again, I want to get everything broken down into sizes that I can use before I start running it through the table saw. I'm going to have 3 smaller drawers. I think the heights were, I want to say 4 inches on the 2 bottom drawers, and then the very top drawer I think was 3 inch. So I ended up getting 1 smaller drawer and then 2 4-inch drawers, and then the bottom drawers were much bigger, the very bottom drawers, but we're not cutting those right now. And I always use a push stick because I don't want to lose my fingers. So these will be the sides of those same drawers, and those are all going to be the same width, so those all came out the same. And then it's just a matter of going through, sanding absolutely everything. And I love watching the edit because, God, this probably took well over an hour. And from there, it's just going to be another glue up. So I want to glue all 4 sides. Clamps per usual, helps hold everything in place while I'm trying to nail. I did not screw any of this. This is all glue and nails. I put the outside rails or the outside portion of the drawer, or this, I don't know, how do I want to say this? The sides of the drawer are on the outside, and then the front and back of the drawer that I'm putting on now, you'll notice, go in between those. And I want to do it that way because the nails are going to also add a little bit of support. So as you're pulling that drawer, you're not also pulling the nails out of the wood. Does that make sense? So I put them in a side like that so they don't pull out as I open my drawers. Now I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm going to make all 4 drawers. There's actually 6 drawers, excuse me. 4 4-inch drawers and then 2 3-inch drawers. And those all get made the exact same way. They're just slightly different sized. The bottoms I made wider than the box themselves. And this is where the no hardware for our drawer slides comes in. I'm using the bottom of the drawer as the drawer slide. And I'd seen this done. I'm not sure who did it. I got the idea a while back, and I'd been thinking of using it on different things, and I didn't know how I felt about it. Sometimes wood binds up, and I wasn't really excited about using wood on wood to be the way the drawers slid out. But I'm going to tell you, having used this table for the few months that I have now, I haven't had any problems with the drawers. I've been through a couple of seasons because that's usually where it will happen during a winter or a summer when the barometric pressure changes, when the humidity changes. The drawers will, the wood will shrink or expand. You'll see it on old doorways a lot of times. They may stick in the winter but open fine in the summer, or vice versa. I didn't want that happening with my drawers, and so I made sure I left enough room for that expansion to happen, keeping that in mind when I was building it. But you can see the slight overhang on those drawers. What I'm doing here is, to finish that thought though, I haven't had any binding in any of the seasons so far, so I'm really happy with it. Now I was measuring out just to make sure that when I was going down that row, I was hitting the center of the box itself, so I wasn't blowing nails into the box or outside the box, that I was going to hit it absolutely dead on. And there you go. So now you can see that's some old MDF. I think that's the top of an old desk that we had. And then some leftover MDF as well. So that's going to be hidden inside, so I didn't really care what it looked like. These aren't supporting anything, so I just nailed them in. They're not giving a lot of support, so just nailed in is going to be just fine. The bottom drawer slides along the bottom. You can see I've cut a little bit of a channel at the very bottom of that white piece of MDF or melamine. And so the bottom drawer just slides right along the bottom of the cabinet itself. Well, from there, I needed to cut something. I don't know what the hell I'm doing here. Oh, these are drawer fronts. Wow. Like I said, it's been a while since I did this, so I'm on this journey with you. I should edit that, but I'm not gonna. So what I'm doing is I've got an old piece of pallet wood here, and I'm cutting out all the nails. I'd taken the nails out a while back. I'm just cutting on either side of the nail holes to get rid of them. I just want the nice wood. And the beauty is I do have a jointer now, which has really changed how I can build things. I know if you don't have one, it's going to be a little more difficult. But this is what I'm trying to get rid of, is taking old cruddy wood that had one time had been trash and reuse it as best I can and turn it into something else. This is, I think, oak of some sort. It's a hard wood, so it ended up being nice drawer fronts. And I cut them all to size with the magic of editing, and then I get to run them through my jointer. Now what this is going to do is any of the cupping that I had in there, it's going to give me a nice flat surface to now be able to run through my planer. And I get them all the exact same thickness on my planer. My planer is a little Ryobi. I need to get a better one of those as well. It can only handle maybe taking a 32nd of an inch off of things at a time. So it takes a real long time to get things down to their thickness. I don't think I show the planer portion of it in this video though, but you get the idea. I just want to get them down to all an equal thickness. And once I did, it's time to put them on the front. To get them attached, I get everything lined up, top and bottom, side to side, get them clamped, and you can see that piece of tape on my drill bit. That's just a depth gauge so I don't go through the front of the drawer front and make a hole. These holes that I'm pre-drilling are just to hold the drawer front on, so I'm just making it just slightly smaller than the size screw that I'm going to be using. I come down equidistant so that they line up inside the drawers, and then I'm just using wood screws to put those in place. And those will sink right in, and as you can see, they're pretty small, so they disappear inside that drawer. Most times you don't see the back side of your drawer front, and that's in place. I'm just screwing them down nice and tight there. And there's one. Slides right in. So I do that to all 6 drawers, and we end up with this. Man, that looks nice. From there, it's back to the table saw. I have set the blade at a 45-degree angle, and I'm running a piece of, I think it's an old easel that I pulled out of a school when I was an HVAC tech. It's a piece of oak, and I'm cutting them down to, probably somewhere around 2.5, 3 inches, just to make some drawer handles. That 45 is going to give a place for my fingers to go to open those drawers. And it makes it a little decorative as well. I'll go through and I'll sand them down. There was an old finish on them, so at this time I wasn't sure what color or if I was going to paint this or stain it. So I just wanted to make sure whatever wood that I was putting on there, I prepped it to either be bare or painted. But you can see how nice that is, and it's a nice comfortable grab as well. And I just wanted to mark out where a few screws were going to go to hold that handle on. I pre-drill from the front so I know where the holes are, and then in the back I countersink it. If you haven't seen the countersinking, in my last video I did talk about countersinking, the cabinet that I made. But all that does is just creates a bevel so that the screw won't sit on top of the wood. It actually sinks down in it nice and flush. Flush just meaning level with the surface. So I'm going to go through, and now I'm countersinking again. Because that oak is pretty hard, I want to make sure I pre-drill a little bit just to make sure I don't split the wood. After I went out through all that work of making those handles, I don't want to split them. And I think I'm just using regular black drywall screws on these. They're kind of the most versatile screw I think I have in my shop. And there you go. There's one. Now I just have to do that 6 more times. And we end up with this. Now, as I said, I've been using this for about 3-4 months now, and I absolutely love it. Well, from there, we need to move on to the larger drawers. There are 2 large drawers. They're both different sizes. I apologize, I can't remember off the top of my head what the measurements are. The top drawer is a little smaller than the bottom drawer, just allowing for space and probably materials that I had. These are getting put together the exact same way as the bottom drawers, just a lot bigger. So those sides will sit on the outside of the drawer, and then the front and the back will sit on the inside so that those nails add extra support and they won't pull out when you pull the drawer out. And I'm going to make the base the exact same way. It's going to be a little bit wider on both sides so that when it can slide into a channel on the sides of the router table itself. So no hardware on these either. With it glued, I am now going to clamp it to make sure it doesn't move. And from there, I'll flip it over. I'm going to make my marks again, just so I know that I'm lining up my nails with the center of the plywood underneath. Give it a few hits of the nails. Again, the glue is going to hold this in place pretty well. I do put a good amount of nails in this one though. It's a lot bigger drawer. I just want to make sure it's well supported. And with everything glued and nailed, we have a nice sturdy drawer box. So from there, I want to take it over and just give it a good test fit. Make sure that everything's doesn't need any tweaking before I do the finished piece. I did these drawer fronts the exact same way I did the smaller ones, just a old piece of pallet wood, milled it down, and made it nice and neat. This switch I pulled off my old router table. I didn't like hello Emmett. Thank you for your help, per usual. Now, I didn't like the router table, but I liked the switch. So I need to make room for these grooves that are on the back side of it. And I'm going to do that with a handsaw and some chisels. So that's where I want the switch to go. I'm right-handed, so I want it on the right-hand side, easy access. And as I said, I'm going to take my Japanese saw and cut a few grooves into it. Then with my hand chisels, just remove the excess materials until I find a nice tight fit. And this took some doing. It was a lot of putting it back up. Okay, I need to remove here and so forth. But once it was done, it fit really nice. I wanted to make sure that I did do some pre-drill because again, this is softwood. You don't want to split, and then some pan head screws, and it was done.
Okay, so let's talk about this floor leveler that I had mentioned earlier in the video. I built it out of some found materials. The reason I built it the way I did is because I'm not really sure, this is a movable table, so I'm not really sure where I want to be using it. There could be things stacked here. I'll move it someplace else in the shop. So it's usually tucked off in the corner until I need it just to keep it out of the way. My entire floor pitches towards a floor drain, but they didn't really do it evenly. So I wanted to be able to have access to these to adjust them easily. You can get some floor levelers that will attach right underneath the leg, and you just use a wrench to raise and lower how you need it. That seemed like it was going to be kind of cumbersome. It also was more material that I was going to have to buy that I didn't have. If you want to see these floor levelers in action, I did use them on my assembly table in an earlier video. You can go back and check that out. That's a fixed position though, meaning the table isn't moving anywhere. So once it was level, and I don't have to worry about it again, and it's been working great. As I said, this is movable. I wanted to make sure that wherever I put it, it was going to be able to level and level quickly. So right now it's out of level, or it's out of, it's out of level, excuse me. And so how the legs work, got a little knob on the side here, and that just slides right down once it's level. And just tighten it back up. Nice, quick, easy. Not quite. The magic of video. I've made it very out of square. I put something under one of the wheels. So what I will recommend that I have been finding with this is trying to find a way. There are washers that you can get that'll hold that nut in place or the bolt in place on the back. I've been having trouble where if I don't have both hands, I can't hold that to stop it from moving. So that's a design that I would change up. And I'm going to take this off and show you in a minute. But there, now we're nice and secure, have it right in place. So as I said, I'll take that off. And this is all it is. This is just, oh, I don't know, 1x4, 1x6 pine that I had kicking around. I put some 45s on it just to make it a little less of a profile on the front. It's not necessary, you can leave it square. I didn't have my router fence set up at the time, so I just drilled multiple holes and then used a chisel to make this slot here. Now that the router table's set up, I would use my router fence, stick it right on there with a stop, make nice, neat, straight cuts. But again, at the time, I didn't have that. So this is just a fender washer and then a longer bolt. I think this is 4.5 inches long. It needed to be long enough to get through the 2x4 and these two pieces of wood here. This is a separate piece here. So there's one piece here, and then a separator piece in the middle, all glued and nailed up. And this is just slightly wider than the thickness of my 2x4, just so it will slide. Don't paint the inside and don't put this on until the paint is cured. I can tell you from experience that once this was on there and the paint wasn't fully cured, the first time I went to level the floor, I had to break this free from the paint because this part was painted, not thinking ahead. So that's pretty much the design. Slides right on, moves freely. This handle that I have is threaded on the inside. This actually came with the old router table that I pulled this switch off of. So again, using what I have, I just had to go out and buy a couple bolts for a few bucks, and away I went. So that is the router table. Coming up next will be the video for the router fence. I'm gonna edit that as quickly as I can and make it a two-parter as fast as I can, so you don't have to wait, and you can get started on your own router table. But until then, I hope you've enjoyed these videos. I'm all crouched down. Ugh. Until then, I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope this gives you some ideas on your own router table. Thank you to the 103 subscribers that I have as of this morning. I'm loving that I'm getting some traction. Tell your friends, and I will keep putting out as best of content as I can. Until then, like, subscribe, thank you, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.